have a guest speaker this evening. This is Cindy Bach from Common Threads. And a couple of you that were at the soup kitchen at Lakeview, I know Maria, she's not here right now, but Maria had gone, a couple of the kids had gone through and got to go through the closet. So this is Cindy Bach. We'd like to welcome her. She's going to tell us a little bit about it and maybe how we can plug in on it.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come and talk with you about Common Threads. When we originally started Common Threads, well, we celebrated our first birthday in January, so we've been around for a little over a year now. We were working, there's several of us that were working in the soup kitchen that you all participate with, and we saw a need one day where folks were coming in without hats and gloves and those kinds of things on. So we started talking with each other and seeing if we could set out gloves and hats and for them to pick up when they pick up their lunch on the way out the door. And then people would come in to us and say, gosh, you wouldn't happen to have a pair of jeans. I got a job and I need a pair of work jeans. And so we would try and scramble and use our email and our contacts and texting or whatever to find out if someone would have a pair of jeans for this gentleman. At that point, JC's was open, and so we could sometimes refer folks over there. But as the months went by, the hours got smaller and smaller of their availability, and then it finally hit closed. We went about 2 months, and we kept thinking something would happen. And you know how life goes. You sort of look at one another and go, okay, what do we need to do to make this happen? In the meantime, the clothes kept coming in as donations. We were working in a room that was literally 10 by 10. And finally, I think the straw that said, okay, let's take action, was I walked in there and it was up to my waist in bags of clothes. And I didn't know what to do because we didn't have anywhere to put anything. So at that time, we put our heads together. And it was Anita Buskey, which many of you know, Joan Schwartz, many of you may know her as well, Anita's husband. And I said, you know, there's this place over in Wadsworth. It's called Miriam's Closet. Let's go talk to them. Maybe they'll have some ideas of what we could do, and maybe they'll just come and start a second location. So we went over and talked to Valerie. And Valerie said, Cindy, I love it, but we can't do a second location right now. You know, so many times these days with nonprofits, you know, you have to stick at what you're good at, and you can't necessarily spread out. And their board actually has some other ideas of what direction they would like to go. And I said, okay. And she must have saw that disappointed look on my face. And she said, but I'll teach you. And I went, oh, this can't be that hard, can it? And that's how we started off. We had a core group of us that went over there on a Saturday and did a walkthrough and figured out how they sort of work it. And then from that, we got more volunteers and more volunteers to the point where we could get ready to open. So we opened on January 3rd, 2013. And the first couple of months, it was some trial and error, as you can imagine, but we stuck to our guns and we did it the way that Marion's Closet does it. And we picked up a few other things along the way that we learned. So we went and visited a closet that's down in Columbus, and we went and visited one that's up in Cleveland. And so you sort of got a feel of what works for everybody and works for that specific population that they're working with. So we are open now 2 days a week. We open on Thursdays from 4 until 7, and we also are open on Saturdays, and that's 10 to 1. The reason we chose those hours is we were trying to make it so that if people are working, and that's what we try to encourage, is that people are getting out and taking care of themselves. Because we really don't want this to be a hand out, we want it to be a hand up. So if they're working, they could come after work, and if they aren't working on Saturdays, then they can come in. Now, if somebody is in a real crisis, we do some extra things on the side, but typically we stick right to our store hours. When someone comes in to sign up with us, we sit down and talk with them, and we sign them up in person. And the reason we do that is it gives us a chance to find out what's going on in their lives, where they're living, who they have in their family, because on their account card is going to be who that they can buy for. So if they have children, it's who they have custody of. Maybe they have some grown children living with them that might have some handicap to them, and that's why they're living with them. We find out, do they have food? Is there electricity on? Some of those kinds of things. Also, at the same time, we go over what our mission is with them, and we go over the monthly limits, because we truly believe that if someone is going to give us donations, we need to be accountable. And therefore, we ask the people who shop with us to also be accountable. And we ask them to pay us a $5 fee a year. That's $5 for the entire year to shop with us. What that does is it makes them part of the solution, right? And then the other part of it too is that if they don't pay, then they can't use the services, and that's what we want them to be a part of what we're doing. So we give them what we call kind of like a Sam's Club card, and it has an account number on there. Now, when they come to check out, we don't ask them for their number, because we don't believe people should be a number. We believe we should call them by name, and most of our folks who come in, our volunteers, know them by name. They know who their kids are. They've got to know a little bit about what's going on in their lives. So what we'll end up doing is giving them a card, and they can shop. And what they shop for could be clothing, shoes, small household items. And when I say clothing, it's everything from newborn all the way up. We have men's, women's, children's. Household items include sheets, towels, things that we sometimes take for granted for having. And then household appliances, like small things, toaster ovens, crock pots, coffee makers, things that can typically be plugged in. And that's because many of the folks who come to shop with us may be living in what would be an apartment that doesn't have a full kitchen in it. So they can cook in a toaster oven, and they can heat up even soup in a coffee maker and those kinds of things. And they have limits, and everybody has to abide by our limits. It's 20 items a month for adults, and that's clothing items. They have, we have a jewelry counter, so they can come in and get things that they normally wouldn't be able to afford, necklaces, earrings, bracelets. There's also knives, because some of them are starting off new in an apartment, and they may not have even a knife or a can opener. It's kind of amazing sometimes who comes into us. On the other end of it, we have people who are working, and they may have an $8 an hour, a $9 an hour paycheck, and that's really troublesome too, because they have enough maybe for utilities and food, but not necessarily to get their clothing for their children. So when I talk about in terms of all the kinds of folks who come in to see us, it's amazing. I even have college students, because this is a very, very, it's very green, it's very friendly, they like that. And the other part of it too is many of them are putting themselves through school these days. So they'll come in and they'll pick out their jeans and their sweatshirts and things. We have, for example, we have people who come in that are extremely nicely dressed, work clothes, office work clothes. I can think of one lady in particular that is just really fun I just really think she's someone who we should all look up to, in the sense that she lost her husband. She's raising 4 children on her own. She hadn't worked outside of the home before, since she started having her family. That could be any one of us. And when he passed away from a heart attack, she went through the life insurance to help keep the house going and his 401k. So at this point, she's on her own. She works in a church as a receptionist for $10 an hour. She loves when she comes to the closet and she gets things that have price tags still on them, because there's not very many times that she can go out and buy something new for her kids. So she saves them, and that's what she gives them for Christmas. So, and when you think about these people, it's just amazing. And you think about, we're doing something good. So it's really, it's a gift that we get to participate into. Our volunteers do a wide range of things. They come in and they sort. They can You knew I was going to have company up here. They sort, they work at the front desk, they pick up donations for us. They input information into our database, because as we bring people on as new shoppers, it goes into a database. Our green cards, which are our tally cards for the month, those go all into our database, because when we go for grants, we can tell you exactly how many items we do a month. We can tell you how many shoes that we have donated, have come into us and gone out. And to give you an idea, for example, September and October, we did 12,000 and 14,000 items per month. Now, in January, we did 4,100. So it just tells you the variation. But if you add up our numbers for 2013, we did over 100,000 items for the entire year. And we can tell you exactly who they went to, we can tell you the age groups we service, and those kinds of things. And part of that is because, again, going back to the idea, we have to be accountable. People are so gracious in giving us their clothing and their items that they're not using in their homes anymore, and we need to be able to tell them. We also need it for grants. We received a grant from the Barberton Community Foundation for all new underwear, something many of us probably take for granted. We rarely get new underwear to us. So for that, we could go out, we could have it in a separate cabinet. When people will come up to us, we could say, you know, for your children, what size do they wear? For you, for your, husband, what can we do for them? And that was huge for many of our folks this year, because again, it's just something they don't get very frequently. I do want to share with you lots of different ideas, and I come when I talk to groups is to get an idea of what is of interest to you and how we can bring you into our family. We have 15 different churches that participate with us, and they come from as far away as Bath. We even have some folks from Jewish Temple that come and volunteer with us. We come from Mount Zion Methodist Church that's up in Cleveland, Massillon, that bring things to us. We have people who, I have a volunteer that has had to move up to be with her family up in Cleveland, so she does data entry for us. So we have folks who come from all different types of communities that participate. We can use people to run the store. So you can come in as a group and all participate together and run the store, and it's your Saturday or your Thursday to run it. We can use you for going to pick up if you have trucks. It's wonderful for us. We get called very frequently for donations, and we don't always have the people to go out and get them. And we can put you on an on-call list, and you can go and pick up donations for us. We can do things that is phenomenal in office skills. We can use you in our office. There is not a single thing that I don't have a job for somebody. Everybody has a skill. Everybody has a gift to share. So we always find different ways that we can have people participate. So we're open to whatever you would like, whatever might be an idea that you have. Young and old can do it together. So that's another thing too I think is awesome, because when you see a grandmother working in the sorting room next to her granddaughter, it's just so cool, because they start looking at the clothes and they start talking about what they wore, and and they're also passing on the gift of volunteerism, which sometimes we don't always get to share with our kids.
I have a practical question. If we were to volunteer, what type of time commitment, what would the hours be? How many of us would you need at a time if we were going to do it as a group? Is there like a certain number that you would need?
I have some people who volunteer once a month. I have some that come in every Saturday. It's so flexible. It is so flexible. Whatever works best for,
And what are your hours on Thursday?
Thursdays are 4 until 7. And the reason we do this is we used to be 3 to 7. But there's a soup kitchen on Thursday evenings over at Presbyterian Church. And what was happening is people were trying to get in, get out, and we would have a lineup at the door, and it was getting very difficult. And so we adjusted our hours so that we could be more flexible with the soup kitchen. It's just one of the things we have to kind of keep in mind with the community we work with. Yeah. And like I said, it's so open to whatever people do. I have, the First Baptist Church comes the first Saturday of the month. Grace brings a Grace group, and they come actually on a Wednesday evening, because we started handing out toiletries the first Wednesday of the month with the soup kitchen, and so that used to be their day. They used to wash dishes, and they didn't want to give up that chance to serve, so they come on that night to do it.
Thank you. We will, I know St. Anne's, we're going to talk about it, and I'm sure we'll come back with you, but thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Does anybody else have other questions, or
You take items, new, used.
new, used? Anything helps. Now, maybe I should talk a little. Well, maybe we should talk about that. And let's talk a little bit about what happens, because as you may bring something into us, and we may not be able to use it because it's not seasonal, or, you know, we had lamps that came in and they didn't have lampshades. So we have an area we can store them in, and you'd be surprised when you pray, you never know what you're going to get. I'll tell you another wonderful story about that in a moment, but so there's some things we can hold off on. If we cannot use the items that come into us, soiled linens, because we really are about quality. When they go out there to the store to shop, it should be about quality. So what we try and do is pass those on. So there's folks that take care of some pets, the Humane Society, and they need blankets to go into the cages. So our things are passed on to them. If craft items come in and we don't think it's something that we could set out, we have so many different groups at churches that make things for, like Children's Hospital, like yarn and those kinds of things. So we have a box that goes to them, and then we have different groups that come and pick up those. On the items that come in that are seasonal, we send them to Goodwill, and let me tell you why. First of all, if it's something we can't use because it's not seasonal, or in the season that we're actually putting out right then, they can certainly use it. The other part is that oftentimes we get tennis shoes and shoes that come into us that are just worn. They really can't be put out. They take the rubber soles off the bottom of the shoes and they recycle the rubber. They take the zippers out of the pants that we get in and they recycle the metal. The fabric of things that are so worn and so not going to be used, they'll end up grinding that up and actually becomes many times the fabric that we wear today. So that's one of the reasons. We don't believe in putting things into landfill that can be used in other ways. If it does have to go into the trash, and I will give you an idea, when we say we did 4,000 items in the month of January, that means that we really sorted through probably 6,000 items before those 4,000 run out. So we do almost a third more in sorting than for what we put out. So that gives you an idea of how much stuff comes into us. So there's a variety of different ways. If there are things that can be used at the Pregnancy Care Center, like car seats and nursery items and those kinds of things, we'll send those on to Pregnancy Care Center. Used cell phones, we get a tremendous amount of them. We get those off to another organization that can use it for victim assistance. So, but to give you an idea, January, because it was so cold, our donations went down significantly. We have what I call it the bomb room. It's something I nicknamed it because it used to be where we put everything until we could move it over to the sorting room. And we were down. The bomb room was cleaned out, the sorting room's cleaned out. And I looked at Linda, who's our manager, and I said, oh, I can't believe it. We've never been without. And I always tell this to my volunteers because I say, have faith. Whatever we need will come through the door. It always works. Well, Word of Life Mission closed, and that building has been sold. We got a call on Tuesday. This was on Saturday that I said this to Linda. On Tuesday, we got a call from the folks who bought that building. They said, the entire building is filled with clothes. Can you come and get it? So when I tell you to be careful what you pray for, so last Wednesday night, here we are, 7 trucks, loading them all up, bringing all of what we could back at this point. We have got 2 more floors of clothing we have to pick up out of there. But everything will be given. I mean, that's one of the things that's probably worked, but it just tells you how funny he is. So I'm waiting to find those lampshades yet. I'm sure they're going to come any moment. So. Well, thank you again. Oh, sure.
Got another question. You mentioned that you give some stuff to the Goodwill. I know if you take stuff to Goodwill, you usually get a sheet you can use for tax purposes. Do you give out anything?
Well, I do. I give we have a donation sheet that we give a receipt, and that's no problem at all. Okay, and what we do is we give coupons from Goodwill, and we give those out to our folks who come into the store. There's always a basket there that if they're going to be going there, because maybe we don't have what they need, but they may have a couple of bucks that they can go and buy. Steel-toed shoes are a huge thing for the guys who come into our thing, because they're trying to get jobs and they need to have those usually for factory work. And I don't get a lot of those in, but they usually can pick some of those kinds of things up at Goodwill. How about the rest of you?
Do you have anyone that goes to department stores to see if you can get new items or inventory from them?
Well, it's interesting you said that. What has happened is you can't, like Kohl's, every once in a while will give me a call and say, okay, but you have to come and get it within so many hours. So if we can do it, we can do it kind of a thing. But what has happened is department stores have been part of this buying network. And as a nonprofit, you can sign up to be part of it and you pay a fee. It's $175 a year to be part of this buying network. And then they give you so many stores that are in your area that you can get their leftovers, their cast-offs. So sometimes, I haven't felt as though we've needed to go down that path yet of paying $175 yet. Maybe that would be. I know Marion's did it for a little while, and she just felt that sometimes we're getting new donations in anyway from people. I mean, it's amazing. To give you an idea, we had 4 cases of Ann Taylor clothes come in, tags still on them. So it was, and it was a perfect timing because they had just had a job fair over at the Y, and those people were looking for clothes to interview in. Does this not tell you how the good Lord works? So, yeah, it's just amazing. So they came in, and these girls could get suits. And do you know how wonderful they must have felt to go to their first interview? Really cool. Really cool.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody. If you need anything, our email's down here, so just send me an email or certain.
Thank you.